Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And today, I was once again lucky enough to get an early access screener from my friends over at Terror Films. Now, they've recently been giving me a whole bunch of these for one particular reason. Terror Films is celebrating 10 years of terror, and the way that they're doing this is by releasing 5 films in October. And they've been nice enough to give me screeners for each and every one of them. Now, so far, I've done reviews for 2 of the films on this list, and now it's time to move on to the third, and that would be the 2025 film Jabberjaw, directed and written by Luke Genton. So, as a quick heads up for everyone, this is going to be a found footage film, which I know not everyone is a particular fan of, me included, but this one honestly wasn't too bad. I will say this when it comes to found footage movies, I do have some respect for them, especially nowadays, mainly due to the fact that you either have to have something that takes place in the past, where it makes sense to be using these old style cameras, or due to the fact that technology is everywhere, it can make it easier at times and yet also harder. Because when you're doing these camera angles, you always have to ask yourself, does this make sense? What's being recorded at the moment? Would this actually be recorded? I will say this movie does a good job of being clever with their use of found footage. One of the characters is kind of a online persona, so she's constantly using her phone, using other webcams, all these kinds of things because she's trying to showcase stuff to her fans. And then the other one, which I'll go more into the reasoning for this, but is actually wearing a body cam. Now, let me tell you more about the concept for this film to see if maybe this is something you'd want to check out once it's available. So, the movie centers around our 2 characters, Dylan and Minnie. Now, Dylan is unfortunately in a bad relationship. So, because she's dealing with that, she's decided to start wearing a body cam so she can keep track of everything that's being done to her. Then we have her best friend, Minnie, who is the individual that I mentioned that has this online presence, as she has a lot of followers that are just kind of checking in on her on a day to day basis. For a little bit of time now, Dylan and Minnie have been talking about taking a vacation together, just having fun as friends, potentially going out into the woods in the middle of nowhere. Dylan ends up pressuring Minnie to do the trip as soon as possible, as she's really fed up with what she's having to deal with when it comes to her boyfriend. So Minnie plans everything out, and the two of them head off to their adventure. At first, this trip ends up being a great thing, as Dylan is able to open up about what's been happening to her to Minnie. We soon discover that these two friends are not the best when it comes to outdoor camping, but they manage to figure things out. Unfortunately for the both of them, they soon discover that they are not alone out here in the woods, as someone or something has tracked them down and is not leaving them alone. So, in my own personal opinion, I do feel like it takes a good while into the film until we really get into the meat of the story or the particular reason of why you would want to watch what's happening to these 2 characters. However, though, once it does get to that point, I really enjoy their use of the atmosphere, the lighting, and just in general creepy moments that are done pretty well, in my own opinion. I can't say that I necessarily connect with either of these characters, but they do a good enough job to where the friendship does seem to be believable. Probably one of my biggest issues with the film is not necessarily the film in general, but some of the choices that are made throughout it are not just bad, they're outright horrible, really dumb choices that almost seem unreasonable at times, but I guess they're just trying to showcase that these characters are not well suited for the situation. Since I'm kind of going back and forth on this film, it was close to being a 2 out of 5, but I think I'll give it a 3 out of 5. If Jabberjaw seems like a film you'd like to check out, it will be available for rental and streaming as of October 17th, so make sure to mark your calendars. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Skewed Reviews. And another big shout out to my friends over at Terror Films. Thank you so, so much for giving me this opportunity to watch these films and do these reviews for you. And I can't wait to see what else you're doing in the future.